Chair or Senate President this year, and thank you for attending our meeting. I'd also like to welcome our guests. Just for visitors, you can follow the agenda on the Senate website. As always, I will do my best to facilitate a good, meaningful conversation with everybody today. As a Senate member, you may request to speak by using the hand raise feature in Zoom, and I will call on folks in turn, and I will do my best to do that. So at this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order at 3:05 p.m. Last week, I and our Senate Secretary and Parliamentarian Sandy Weintraub attended the Senate Leadership Conference hosted by the Big Ten Academic Alliance in Madison, Wisconsin. This conference allowed us to spend time with other leaders from across the Big Ten and discuss our common challenges and opportunities. I came away from this conference with the knowledge that by working together, we are stronger, but also that despite our own concerns and tensions here at UO, we are lucky here to have engaged faculty, student, and staff partners in the Senate who are committed to helping the university. And we also have engaged partners in UO's administration who are committed to partnering with the Senate and other leaders in campus in a spirit of shared understanding and shared responsibility. I wanted to thank everybody who participates in these meetings every week for your time and attention to the work that the Senate does, and also to our committee leaders who do a lot of work to make the engine of the Senate and approvals and policies and things run smoothly. In other news, I also wanted to congratulate Senator Pedro Garcia Caro on his election to the Interinstitutional Faculty Senate as vice chair. That body is made up of Senate leaders from all of the Oregon public schools around the state, and it meets every couple months to talk about shared challenges and to try to coordinate a response to the on-state matters as they relate to Oregon's higher education system. Today we have a very full agenda, and I will do my best to move our conversation along. For example, we have a chance to learn about 2 new degree offerings, one a master's in cybersecurity and one in Bachelor of Education in Child Behavioral Health. We also have invited Derek Kindle, our new Vice President for Student Services and Enrollment Management, to share his vision for recruitment and enrollment at the UO. With the university so dependent upon tuition for our annual budget, as we learned, we wanted to learn more about how Derek thinks about recruiting new students to the UO and their journey through their time here. We also have a presentation on new software platform that will help manage a database of faculty CVs, portfolios, and dossiers called Elements. You've probably heard that this system has been used this fall to manage dossiers for those under review or up for promotion. Soon, however, we will all develop our own online profiles. Hal Sadowski, Executive Vice Provost for Academic Administration, will be here to provide an overview of Elements for us and answer questions. Well, our last piece of new business today, this week, is to hear an introduction from Bob Choquette, Chair of the Senate Rules Committee, on a motion to update our bylaws regarding Senate term definitions and the procedure to call emergency meetings. But before we dig into our meeting, I wanted to acknowledge that many members of our campus community feel exceptionally vulnerable and afraid in light of recent actions by federal immigration officials in the Eugene-Springfield area over the past few weeks, including today. They even showed up at my child's school this morning. To help us all better understand our rights and how we can protect ourselves and our staff, students, and faculty, I've invited Jessica Price from the General Counsel's Office to provide an update for us, and I also believe she'll have some time for questions. Jessica is the Special Counsel for Research, Ethics, and International Affairs in the General Counsel's Office. And I saw you come in earlier, Jessica, but I don't see your little tile, but I believe you're here, so you now have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. I tend to jump right into the law, but I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the vulnerability, the tension, the terror, and the cruelty in the times that we're living in right now. I know I have just a few minutes, so I'm going to jump right into the point. There are some things that people with extremely good intentions could do that might result in some harm. For example, someone with good intentions might tell someone, if you see ice, run. It turns out that running can create reasonable suspicion, where someone might not have had cause to stop someone. Seeing them take evasive action might give them that cause. Um, some folks might think if ICE is on our community's campus, we're going to show up, we're going to create a human shield. Creating a human shield or otherwise gathering in the midst of ICE activity can result in a number of unintended consequences, including more people being arrested, including some of the people that might have been the most dedicated advocates for someone in terms of contacting attorney and contacting loved ones now being in handcuffs and unable to help others. Someone with really good intentions might promise someone safety and say, in my class, you are safe. And I would say, don't make promises you can't keep. In January, the designation of sensitive locations, which limited ICE and its ability to conduct enforcement at courthouses, hospitals, and schools, was rescinded. And if someone is in your classroom and you are aware and you let them know ICE is outside, wait here, use a different exit, etc., we have seen that this administration is intent on using the harboring statute and going after people who provide that kind of assistance. And the most high-profile incident was a Milwaukee judge who informed a person in the courtroom that they could use a different exit and then was arrested and indicted for violating that statute. A person with good intentions might post online, we are a sanctuary state and at least here people are safe. And that there are ways in which the current federal administration is prioritizing particular targets. And we know from the 9+ executive orders on this topic that the word sanctuary is one of the bases on which the federal government is using to identify targets. So for that one, you are balancing between helping your students feel safe and potentially making students a target. A person with good intentions might send an email with concern that says, hey, my class has a disproportionate number of undocumented students. Where can I get support? I would not recommend using the resources of an entity that's subject to the Public Records Act. So putting things in writing about confidential or other information that you would not otherwise share on using U of O email or using other U of O platforms. And finally, a person with good intentions can, might decide to try to get in between. And I would never recommend putting yourself physically at risk because that can result in an obstruction charge, which can limit your ability to advocate. This year, we've seen the sensitive locations memo was rescinded, which means schools can be a target. We've seen a registry requirement, which is essentially a requirement that people have their documents on them. I-94, this is, well, it's supposed to be for people with visas. So an I-94 or other evidence of a lawful basis to be present. But it also means, because of this Supreme Court decision, Vasquez v. Perdomo, that people who look like they might be from another country are likely going to want to carry documents on them as well. And that's a very tough personal decision as well. Walking around with your passport means that you might be able to show it if necessary, but there have also been news that people have not been able to access it you risk losing it. And that's an important document to be able to have. So many folks are carrying copies in response to this registry requirement. And the thing is, the federal registry requirement is something to consider on the one hand, and on the other, Oregon is not a stop and identify state. So it's not the case that walking around in Oregon, you should expect to be stopped by police and have to show your documentation status. But that's of limited comfort when federal agents are present. These more than 9 executive orders on this topic have tried to focus on limiting the benefits that go to people, including limiting public benefits, limiting federal research dollars, executive order called Ending the Taxpayer Subsidization of Open Borders, and enhanced vetting of hostile attitudes. There have been programs to monitor social media posts and then respond accordingly based on attitudes toward the federal government, which implicates potential viewpoints, potential protected First Amendment speech. And one of the things I want to acknowledge is I am talking about the law, and that is the world in which I operate. And I can't give personal legal advice, but the law is important. But there is a difference between the law and what may happen in practice. So that's something that I just want to acknowledge because it makes it very limited. It very much limits what I can commit. So, for example, the Vasquez Perdomo case, which has been cited repeatedly as a recent Supreme Court decision that allows for racial profiling, that's not what it says. And when people say that, they make people very afraid. That decision did say that race can be one of a number of factors in allowing for reasonable suspicion, and it's quite nuanced. But that's the law. And whether or not there is an agent that is adhering to that case and that law versus looking for people based on how they look, the reality is that that is possible. In Oregon, U of O does not cooperate with federal agents. We are prohibited from using our resources to support the federal government. We have convened a tabletop exercise with key campus point people, including the chief of police, the dean of students, and others, to plan based on what's happened in other locations, including on other campuses, so that we have a plan in place. If someone shows up and says they have a warrant or a subpoena, we want to be contacted. We want to see it. We want to be able to identify whether or not it's whether or not it's valid. We have what's called the equivalent of a phone tree, meaning we have a number of people that we know to be in touch with if we had activity on campus. We provide support to people regardless of their status. And one of the key questions coming up now is, what about where can ICE go? Where can ICE go on campus? And the key indication is if it's a public space, they can go. If anyone can go, they can go. If it's non-public, they cannot. Putting up a sign in a public space saying ICE is not welcome or this is not public does nothing. If anyone is allowed in and out, then they can go as well. And we can't change that by putting up a sign that doesn't accurately describe the nature of the space. At the same time, classrooms, if you don't allow someone to pop into your classroom to sell Girl Scout cookies, ICE agents are not allowed. Classrooms are not public. But I would recommend keeping that practice consistent, which is classrooms are not public unless you were to say anyone can come in. But it's my understanding that all of our classrooms are not public. I would recommend not not promoting that there is a significant population that I should be interested in on campus, and certainly not physically confronting. And the most important piece I can say, I know I've maybe gone too long, call us. Call the general counsel's office. There's a link has been put in the chat, 541-346-3082. Call if you have questions, call if you see an agent and they say they want access to something. Very respectfully, if you like, you can say, I am required to contact this office before I can give you access to anything. Please wait. And if I'm talking from the law, they should wait. If I'm talking from reality, it's possible they will proceed, and I can't make that promise. But if they did, I would say, please don't put your physical self in any harm. Please contact us and we will respond ASAP.
So thank you for that good overview, Jessica. There's a couple questions in the chat, and I have one as well. So if classrooms are private space, but hallways are not, they can wait for someone to leave the classroom, and we cannot say go out the side door because that could be interpreted as impeding or harboring, correct? I just want to know sort of how to keep folks safe and from getting into tricky legal situations that they might want to consider.
Yes, hallways are generally public. If someone were to tell someone to use a different exit, we know that that has been used to charge someone with violating the anti-harboring statute, and that person was a judge. And there may have been other incidents that I haven't researched yet. We don't have a map indicating all of the spaces because it is nuanced. In every building, there might be an office or spaces that are private, and spaces that are not. And it's the practice that makes the reality. So if there is a space that no one is allowed into, whereas normally we would think anyone can go there, but there's a space that is in practice private, then that might not be consistently reflected if we were to try to survey the entire campus. The phone line for the general counsel's office is monitored 24 hours a day on the weekends. You can also call UOPD and we will be in touch with each other.
So there's a couple questions. I'm going to go with the senators first as our practice. So Senator Addington.
Thanks. We've the information about things we might do that might put other people at risk was very welcome. We've also heard a couple times that we shouldn't tell someone about another door because we might be prosecuted, and it seems worth drawing a distinction between actions that put other people at risk and actions that put ourselves at risk. If I want to tell someone there's another door out, I'm glad to be informed of the risk, but the idea that I shouldn't do it, I feel like that's up to me. Could you speak to that maybe a little bit?
That is fair.
Yeah, from my perspective is that, could be, seen as an act of civil disobedience to say go out the side door. But there may be legal consequences for you for that, just like sitting in front of a building and impeding people's ability to get into the building, for example. So
That's great to understand. I doubt that this Milwaukee judge regrets her actions.
right, exactly. We just want to make sure that folks know what the risks are and their rights are, right? There's a good question in the chat. Does my classroom remain a private space after the scheduled end of my class period?
Yeah, and I think there was a good question before it as well that may answer it. Generally, spaces are public, but it's really, is are members of the public allowed to go there? I'm not aware of the practice across the entire campus. What I've seen are classrooms that are not open to the public in between classes, but that might vary in places that I'm not aware of where the doors are open and anyone can go in.
Thank you. Senator Stevenson.
Hello, thank you so much for being here and explaining the details of this. A clarifier that I had as someone who was a student was if students were to make, let's say, similar actions to something that could get a faculty member fired, are students going to be facing similar sort of punishments, or how is that going to work? Like if students decide collectively, oh, we're not letting ICE into this building, is that something that the students would be punished for at mass?
Mm, that's a great question. I'm trying to think through the possibilities. I would say my initial response, which is the risk averse one, is it would depend on the facts, because I don't want to make a promise I can't keep, right? And so I'm not going to say if what your intent is to prevent ICE access, you can do anything. I can't say that. If it's between students and ICE, I'm not aware of what the issue would be, but here are a couple of conduct code provisions. One is the violation of law, and that's, I'm not sure how that would apply, but that's one that could be implicated. And the other, I'm blanking, but what I'm trying to run through in my mind is whether or not there's a student conduct code provision that applies
Okay,
that would.
so sorry to cut you off. So for clarification, the university would be punishing us for actions taken towards ICE as students.
Well, so no, I wouldn't say that. I would
Okay.
say if the intent is to stop ICE, I can't say that you can do that with impunity, right? So if it's conduct that you might be penalized for other intentions, you could probably be penalized for it if it involves ICE as well.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So I think that probably answers your question, Annie, as well. Professor Perez Baez, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Jessica. I haven't seen you for a while, but I remember you fondly from our writing circles. I have great respect for you, and I thank you for your information At the same time, I want to ask you and the UO leadership, as I have been doing to them for the last couple of weeks, to please put together adequate, thorough training for our UO community. You just presented us with very, very complex concepts. I'm sorry, I'm very emotional at this time. You've presented us with very complex concepts within a few minutes because that's all you were given. As you can see, there's a million questions. The focus has been on the protection of us as individuals, as opposed to the protection of our collective, of our community. When the community is well, the individuals are well. There's 71 people participating in this meeting today, hearing Jessica's very important words. We are thousands in the UO community. I'm asking for adequate 1 to 2 hour training for our community that covers know your rights materials, constitutional rights of immigrants independently of their immigration status. I'm asking you to elaborate on the topics that Jessica has addressed today, what to do when ICE comes, how to document an ICE intervention, how to assist detainees, how to ask them for family members' names and numbers so that they can be contacted, contacting the Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition immediately, how to identify, as much as we know that we are not to serve a warrant, how to identify a proper judicial warrant from a phony one, and at least know that, that there needs to be a proper warrant presented. The distinction between private and public spaces, everybody is wondering about this. Resources, where does someone go once they have been detained, once their parents are detained, etc. Today, I had my class. This was about 15 minutes after my phone started ringing nonstop because of the ICE interventions in Eugene. I asked my students, do you feel like you have enough knowledge on how to act if you are faced with an ICE intervention? One student responded. She said, ISSS sent us something about we're supposed to call someone. I don't remember who. There's no understanding of who general counsel is. That's a completely abstract concept for most students. And many of them don't even know the level of risk that we're talking about. So please, I am asking you, just like Oregon Youth Soccer Association is putting together training for their communities in Spanish and English with the acumen that we have at UO, as an institution with Jessica's knowledge, with the law school in our institution, it is not we have to do it. Please do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor
That is-
Perkins.
Sorry.
Jessica?
Thank you for those very powerful remarks and feedback. I think that's a really important point. A couple of things that I wanted to share in response. One, yes, we could do a training on how to tell a phony warrant from a real one, but no, I would never want someone to say, I've been trained on this. This looks real. You can access. I would not want someone to provide access based on their belief that a warrant is valid. I would want them to say, you can even say, I haven't been trained on looking at this. I have to send this to another office and then send it my way. There are students, I will acknowledge, are not aware of our office, and that is okay, assuming they have an office that they can contact. If a student contacts me and says, hey, I have an immigration issue, I have an immigration question, that conversation is not privileged. Because I don't represent students, I'm not allowed to provide individual legal advice. So I would rather they contact some of these resources in the community that are pretty awesome. And I think those resources would be really fantastic in getting an invitation to come to our community. And I would defer to you on which one might be best, or I would defer to other decision makers, but the Immigrant Rights Coalition, Oregon Justice Resource Center, the ACLU, Basic Rights Oregon or the Department of Justice, any one of those that might be able to come and provide a training. Maybe not so much the Department of Justice because their attorneys would have the same limitations as I do in terms of who they can represent. But organizations that could actually take your call in the event of an incident and provide individual legal advice, I think it would be great to have a direct contact between them and our campus community. And in that case, I would also really appreciate an invitation to participate in that kind of training.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. I sort of see it similar to the teach-in we held last spring around some of these questions as well. But I can work with your office on seeing if we can arrange for something like that. Senator Vallega, and then I'm going to close questions at this time. If you'd like to put any other questions in the chat, I can, or send them to me by email. I can follow up with the general counsel's office or other relevant folks on campus to get answers for you. So I'll also planning on putting together some of these, a list of some additional information to send out to our senators. So Senator Vallega.
Yes, thank you. First of all, Professor Perez-Valls, thank you very much. As a senator, I want to second what you're saying, because there is a great degree of fear among students, and they really don't know what's going on, and they're confused. At the same time, I want to suggest that what I have heard is basically having wonderful information from Jessica Price, but it sounds to me that this should be heard, as I hear it, as an invitation to inform ourselves further and to learn more and do as much as we can to learn about the situation as professors and as senators, rather than expecting Jessica to deliver everything to us. So I think that what's important is to keep in mind that I believe that we should really inform ourselves as much as we can, and also just to be clear, try to be as clear as possible where that information can come from and how we can educate ourselves as the process keeps going and it keeps changing.
Jessica, did you have any follow-up or?
No, that sounds right. And I just want to thank you so much for your time, and thank you for serving as educators and advocates during these difficult times.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, Jessica. As I mentioned, please send any additional questions to me or Vice President Davis, and we'd be happy to try to get an answer for you. As Jessica pointed out, some of these things are more nuanced than I think that, my goal is to try to help protect everyone's safety and well-being. That's my priority. So we'll try to get a little bit more information out to folks. Thank you. Thank you for your time today, Jessica. All right, so now we can move on with our meeting, and I'd like to invite Senator Gill to provide the ASU update today.
Hello, everybody. Quick updates on what ASU has been up to. We just got done with celebrating ASU's 125th birthday by doing a deep dive into things like the history of the IFE, the history of just like how the structures of ASU came to be, and collaborating with students. We had cake in the office, and it was a fun event. We also threw the State of the University, a town hall style event where we had about like 45 students come, and we talked about what ASU has been up to, gave a public forum for students to ask questions, and broke out into some discussion questions talking about like the UO ticketing system that people are upset about, and just other issues on campus that are very prevalent. And then we also did our Week of Relief last week, which was a one-time funded event where we gave food out and relief in the wake of the SNAP cuts that were prevalent last month with the government shutdown. So we did a can drive in the surrounding neighborhoods, picked up a lot of food, and it was a huge success. A lot of students showed up, a lot of students donated, and yeah, that's what ASU has been up to.
Great, thank you, Senator Gill. So now it's time for approval of the minutes. Are there any questions or changes to the minutes from our October 8th meeting? Well, that's not right, October 29th meeting. Does anyone move to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Seconded.
okay, without objection, the meeting minutes are approved. Great. All right, so next we have remarks from Provost Long. Provost Long, you have the floor.
Thank you, President Mason, and thank you, Senator Gill, for your updates. And it's good to be with colleagues this afternoon. Already early this morning, my wife, Val, who works as an English as a second language instructor at the Plaza de Nuestra Comunidad, was texting me about the presence of immigration officials in our local community today. Aggressive immigration enforcement is creating real worry and concern, as we've heard in this meeting already. It's doing that here on our campus and also throughout our community. Diana mentioned in our schools. I'm really grateful, Jessica, for your presence here and for the wisdom and the thoughtfulness and the guidance that you're providing. And I am also grateful for the work that so many colleagues have done to ensure that we have the training that we need, the resources and the understanding that we need. And we need to continue to do that, as Gabriela mentioned and has been advocating for. So I'm committed to working with you all on that and to trying to ensure that, as Alejandro also mentioned, that we're all educating ourselves about this situation. Let me begin then this afternoon with the words of educator and author Bell Hooks, which speak to something vital about the mission of our university. Educating is always a vocation rooted in hopefulness, she writes. As teachers, we believe that learning is possible, that nothing can keep an open mind from seeking after knowledge and finding a way to know. Thank you. Thank each of you for the role that you play in seeking knowledge, in finding ways to know, even and especially now when the whole world seems intent on finding ways not to know. Today, the Senate will consider the creation of 3 new academic programs. After the budget cuts that we faced in recent months, we've heard concerns about launching any new academic programs in the current climate and about potential areas of overlap between the proposed programs and existing academic offerings here at the University of Oregon. I think these are fair questions, and they're also part of a robust consultation process. And I also want to offer 2 responses to that, since this is on the agenda for today. First, even in challenging moments, and maybe especially in challenging moments, we can't allow a deficit mindset to take root. A university that stops evolving begins to wither. To continue leading through this period of intense disruption in higher education, we need creativity, imagination, and an enduring focus on the things that matter most. That's why we're committed to moving from planning to action on the Oregon Rising goals this year, and why we decided not to impose a hiring freeze. We still need to do some hiring in a small number of strategic areas. It's also why we must continue to align our academic offerings with the shifting interests, needs, and aspirations of our students. Developing strong, relevant programs that attract students and generate sustainable revenue is essential to our future. Second, no academic program, as you know, arrives before you without considerable research, deliberation, and consultation. Each proposal is generated by faculty and then moves through a rigorous process: assessment of market demand, financial viability by schools and colleges, and by my office, the review by the Provost Council so that our deans are aware of proposals and can flag potential conflicts, academic review by faculty-led curriculum committees and the Graduate Council, and independent financial analysis by the Vice President for Finance and Administration, and a review by the Senate Executive Committee. So only after navigating all these gates does a program arrive here for your consideration. So Today, you'll discuss 3 programs, the new Bachelor's of Education in Child Behavioral Health, new Master's in Cybersecurity, and the Master's in Data Science, which the Senate discussed last month. As you'll hear from the faculty and leaders behind those proposals, they can be launched with minimal new costs or hiring, and they reflect sound academic judgment, and they open real opportunities for new revenue for us. They've been proposed to expand our student body, not simply reshuffle the students we already have. So from my perspective, these programs all represent thoughtful steps. They're forward-looking, student-centered, and responsive to the evolving landscape of higher education as well as to industry needs. I also want to touch briefly on the new University of Oregon Element system. Diana, you mentioned that we'll be discussing, I know Hal will be discussing today. Now, I've been part of rolling out new systems like this now at 2 other Big Ten universities. And each time, no matter how careful the planning, it has been painful. And the pain stems not only from the fact that we're changing the ways we've done things. Such changes, I think, are always difficult, but also because the change involves the very work that gives academic life its depth and its meaning. But this is just what makes the implementation of this system so important from my perspective. It empowers us to more effectively curate and organize the teaching and research activities that animate the life of the university. Although the ability to more effectively manage reviews and promotion is definitely part of what we're building here. And today, you'll learn more about that with what Hal goes through. We can't lose sight of the broader purpose to enable us to make our work more legible to one another and to the world so badly in need of the teaching and research that we do. The implementation of elements opens an opportunity for us to strengthen our scholarly community by intentionally curating our online scholarly presence, not just tracking its outputs. In my own academic life, I've long committed to using digital tools and platforms to create communities of interest and practice around the issues that are most dear to me, first around my philosophical work, and increasingly over time around efforts to transform and renew higher education. And when I speak to faculty and students about developing a public scholarly presence, I often hear hesitation. But let me speak directly from my own personal experience. New opportunities have opened for me. Invitations to keynote at conferences, to contribute to edited collections, special editions of journals. Indeed, most of my sponsored research has been made possible by the community of scholars who engage my work first through my online scholarly presence. A vibrant and well-connected academic community doesn't emerge by accident. It takes infrastructure, clarity of purpose, and intentional effort. At its core, the launch of Elements has this spirit. And it also, I think, well, it also leads me to a call for action. I consulted with Alicia Salaz on this, our university librarian, because if you've not already done so, I encourage you to make sure that you have an ORCID ID that's linked to your UO single sign-in. And I'll put the link to this to ORCID, if you don't have it already, in the chat. If you have questions, ask your local librarian there at the university libraries, where they're ready to help. This is something that's it's tremendously important to get the work that you do, and it's so important to you, out into the public eye. As a public research university, it's critical. So let me conclude by returning to bell hooks, who writes, "My hope emerges from those places of struggle where I witness individuals positively transforming their lives and the world around them," end quote. Education is rooted in that hopefulness. And I'm grateful to be working with each of you to actualize the spirit of that hopefulness in our classrooms, our studios, in our labs, and in the wide diversity of communities enriched by the good work of this university. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Long. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions today. If folks have a question. All right, so seeing no questions, we'll move on. Thank you very much for your time today, Provost Long. Right, our first item of business today is to vote on the Masters of Data Science proposal that was presented to us at the last meeting. Based on the good conversation we had last time regarding the proposal, I wanted to invite Professor Peter Ralph to provide any updates to follow up on the questions that were raised in the last meeting. Peter, would you like to provide a quick update?
Thanks. So last time there were some concerns from education and math, and and I think it's fair to say mostly these were requests for additional consultation. So education has a master's program in education policy and leadership with a specialization in data science. And so there's concerns that would be competing for students and perhaps duplicating effort around some of the courses. So we talked, and like we are committing to not targeting students who are looking to work in education, and particularly in education policy. This isn't a change. We weren't planning on doing that. If somebody with that specialty applied to us, like I would have wondered why they weren't applying to them. So, and as for duplicating effort, we are both teaching courses at the master's level on data analysis and visualization and things like that, but we decided that there isn't a lot of overlap there because of different focuses in different focuses, like they focus on education, we focus more broadly, lean towards natural sciences. They teach in R, we teach in Python, and just more generally, we're a lot more enthusiastic about synergies between the programs, like their courses complement ours in a lot of ways, and hopefully vice versa. And so that's education. And with math, there are concerns that maybe there was, again, duplication of effort, but around these foundational courses in math and stats that we were proposing, and these were to provide additional background for students coming in who needed some more training in math or statistics. And we agreed, in fact, this is already our position here, that that if those that it would be ideal for us if those students and those courses could be provided for by probably existing math courses, and so we agreed that would be doing our best to send students to math to fill those prerequisites, and hopefully we won't actually, data science won't need to be offering those foundational courses because they'll be provided by math. And so in general, in both of these, my outcome was it'll be great to be working together, and there's a lot of synergies there. And I think maybe Senators Addington and the delegate from education might say something about this.
Right.
Last name I'm forgetting, sorry.
Thank you, Professor Ralph. So is there a motion to vote on approving this program proposal, the Masters of Data Science?
So moved.
Okay, a second?
I can second. Nikki McLaren.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. So any further discussion or questions? Let me get my, hold on, toggling screens here. Senator Addington.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to say that Ben Elias, who's the math department head, and I met with Peter, and we talked about all the issues that he just mentioned. It sounds like some of these, maybe remedial is the wrong word, but remedial courses are still being thought through, and so we were glad to have that conversation with him now rather than later, and we were satisfied and happy to support the program.
Great. Thank you, Senator Addington.
Hi, I'm a delegate from education. I also met with Peter, and our team met together, and the deans actually had a conversation. So we really appreciated Peter reaching out, discussing some of these issues with us. I would just say that we should continue to keep these conversations going. And I know that when the motion goes through, it feels like, yes, let's move it, but I want these conversations to keep going so that we can build both our programs rather than compete. And I'm here to support.
Great, thank you, Substitute Senator Gopalan, right? Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Very close.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, it's now time to vote. Please put your vote in the chat.
All right, so there are no votes for the motion to pass, so it has passed. There are some no votes as well as some abstentions. We will get the totals and post those when we have them, but there are enough votes for it to pass.
Thank you. All right, our second item of business today is a presentation of another proposal for a new Masters of Cybersecurity. To introduce this proposal, I'd like to invite Professor and former Senator Reza Rajeh to provide a short proposal for us on this program. Senator Rajeh, you have the floor.
Thank you, President Mason. Can I share my presentation? Is that okay?
Yes, you should be able to. Hold on.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure that it is appropriate to do so. I hope you can see my presentation. President Mason, U.S. Senators, it's good to be here. I'm glad that Senator still remembers me as a former senator. It's good to be back. I'm here to give you a short presentation about the master's degree program by primarily presenting the cybersecurity programs that we have been working on for quite some time and how they justify this new program and can support this new program and make it a compelling proposal. I think a good place to start is to give you a little bit of background. Our department has been offering cybersecurity classes for more than 20 years and conducting research in this area for a couple of decades. A few years ago, we have decided to expand our program in terms of scope and depth to become a regional hub in cybersecurity research and education, and also add training elements by reaching out to community at large, not just our students. This vision is partially supported by the creation of Oregon Cybersecurity Center of Excellence by the state of Oregon in 2023 after passing of House Bill 2049. This is an effort that has been at works for almost 10 years. We have been part of it along with OSU and PSU that finally led to the creation of this center. UFO along with PSU and OSU are co-leading the center. And the workforce development has been a key element of Oregon Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. To give you a sense of need for cybersecurity workforce that is experiencing great shortage, in Oregon alone, as of 2023, we had 4,000 unfilled jobs in cybersecurity, and across the nation, the number is more than 400,000. And I should add that Oregon Cybersecurity Center of Excellence also provides funding for all 4 schools. So the vision that I mentioned has been kind of driving many of our recent decisions, and the master's programs that we are discussing here is an element of that broader vision. One of the most critical aspects of supporting any program is our faculty. We have a strong group of tenure track and teaching faculty, as well as a staff that support all our cybersecurity programs in computer science department. We are fortunate to have a really close relationship with the operational side of campus. Our current UFO CISO, Jose Dominguez, has been a strong partner with us, and some of the other members of the organization have been closely working with us. And as you see later, these have been a really valuable asset because our program has several operational elements that their expertise are critical for. Let me go through a number of synergic activities that basically we have been working on, and they're supporting the master's degree. I already mentioned the creation of Oregon Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Back in 2023, we launched a new bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, and we focus a lot on community building for this new group of students by focusing on our cybersecurity club that is still ongoing to make sure this major has a healthy growth as the demand for these jobs continue to exist. Perhaps the most exciting activity and the signature of our program that is about to launch is a Teaching Security Operations Center, or TSOC. We are establishing a Security Operations Center, fully functional Security Operations Center on campus to serve state and government agencies at no cost, and have students work on that facility as a class to get hands-on training before they leave campus as a part of our degree. So by the time they graduate, they have hundreds of hours of experience working in an actual facility, which we think is a perfect example of experiential learning elements that we could offer. We have been also working on another element that is about to launch called Risk Clinic. We train students to go and do assessment of critical infrastructure. We receive $250,000 funding from the state to do cybersecurity assessment for more than 100 water districts during the next 2 years. We have recently applied and secured a Center of Academic Excellence in Research designation from the NSA for the next 5 years. This is basically a badge that shows the quality of our research, and I think would be critical for students who consider our program. Currently building a cybersecurity lab using equipment donations from vendor partners, and this would be a sandbox for students to play and break and do all sort of hacks in the lab to become familiar with this before they leave the program. Currently, we are exploring interdisciplinary angles of cybersecurity by reaching out to law school, School of Business, public policy, and others to see if they have courses relevant to cybersecurity that we can offer to our students, and make some of our courses accessible to their students, so we kind of explore any cross-pollination opportunity that exists that maybe down the road becomes a minor across multiple departments. And finally, we are purchasing a cutting-edge cybersecurity simulators. As you can imagine, you cannot create cyber attacks for students if it is not happening during their shift. So you might have students working on a program, but they don't experience an actual attack scenario. So there are some high-quality simulators that we have that allow a student to be exposed to a real attack scenarios without experiencing it in the wild at TSOC. As we have been working on the cybersecurity program, it has become very clear to us that we cannot just sit on campus and develop a program and expect that it properly connects with other stakeholders outside the university. Because of that, we have spent a significant effort cultivating and establishing connections with high schools, and also working on our partnership with industry, so students know about cybersecurity when they're at high schools, come here and complete a degree, and then have a smooth transition to the industry. We have a $500,000 grant from the HEC called Nurturing Inclusive Cybersecurity Education, or NICE. One of the major goals of that program is to go to the high school in Oregon, promote cybersecurity education, and make sure the students are exposed to this topic. We offered our first training workshop for high school teachers this past summer, so they can offer a cybersecurity course in their schools. We are holding campus tours for high school students, and we are now open to visit any high schools in Oregon, anywhere, either virtually or in person, to engage them in cybersecurity activity, so they know about this and they're intrigued to consider it. There are a number of activities at U of O also that is supported by this grant, including creating community, reviewing our curriculum, and make sure that the minority students are supported through our programs. We have been establishing partnership with cybersecurity vendors to support our activities and program, donate equipment, and provide resources that otherwise we don't have access to. And we have been working on creation of an industry partners network. We have 2 events that are coming up when we're hosting these partners coming to campus, interacting with the students, and the dimension of our interactions are listed below. We want these partners to host our master's student as a co-op, which is curriculum integrated component, or bachelor's student as intern. And they have many other involvements. We take some of the professionals to high schools to mentor students. They come here and mentor our own cybersecurity students. They are supporting our experiential learning elements, and they are involved in supervising capstone projects, R&D, and comments on our curriculum. So with that background, I just want to say a few words about the cybersecurity program. This is a degree that is primarily intended for students who have a competency in computer science already. We are at the same time working on a grad certificate program that is intended for students, frankly, with any bachelor's degree, but more realistically for those who have a bachelor's degree in STEM. And then they can enter the certificate program, take a few courses, and do a change in their career if they are interested in this field. As far as some of the key features, we have foundational experiential learning, such as TSOC. I already mentioned that. One of the key signatures is use of AI and machine learning models in cybersecurity solutions. We have the competency for this, and we have developed a course for this, and we want to make that a critical element of the program. Our program offers competency in network, system, software security, as well as cyber operations. I already mentioned about the co-op, which is curriculum integrated and should be facilitating transition of students to industry, and we keep adding more exciting courses. We are also exploring ways to offer this master's program at the Portland campus for the university to have a closer access to the growing tech sector in Portland area, because we think many of the employees there would be interested in this opportunity to pursue this master's degree and upskill in this area that has so many job opportunities. I want to end with a few words about the resource requirements. We would like to gradually increase the enrollment in this program, even though we anticipate the demand to be high. And the primary reason for slow growth is because we want to make sure we can place the students and co-op that is a critical element. We are already working with Dennis Galvin and recruiter in India that indicated interest to the master's degree in computer science, and in particular, master's degree in cybersecurity that we are developing to bring some international students to this program. We should be able to accommodate an annual cohort of 25 students in this program with our current classes and current resources without adding any extra, without requesting or requiring any extra resources. But as the program grows beyond this limit, we should be able to manage the growth with having more GE support as TA for larger classes. And if they go beyond certain limit, we probably need to have another faculty line to help us with this additional section or even larger classes that the current resources cannot handle. So thanks for the time. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm just gonna stop sharing.
Great. Thank you, Professor Rajai. Senator Ramos-Cottrell.
Hi, Reza. Thank you very much for addressing the things that we brought up during the Graduate Council. I think everything is right there. Just for the sake of, reiterating some of those, not concerns, but, some of those points. My question is for the provost here to reiterate once again what he candidly just offered to us, Chris. So given the fact that some of these programs are going to be, are in demand and they will require resources, as per what you mentioned, then is it possible for the university to trust that if there is an increase, and there will be an increase in this particular program, there will be funding available to, provide the GE support necessary and the faculty lines if the need becomes apparent, urgent, or whatnot?
Provost Long?
Yeah, this was I was making sure that was understood, that was directed at me. Thanks, Casey. Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is something that we're constantly evaluating as we think about how programs grow. And this particular program that we're talking about is a graduate level program. So we're in conversations about how the academic allocation side of the budget flows to colleges, but on the graduate side, it flows robustly to colleges, and so there should be funding to grow with the growth of programs. So, but I'm committed to working with the colleges and the deans and programs to make sure that, particularly when we have a program that is growing like that and bringing new students from across the globe, that they're successful.
Thank you, Provost Long. Any other questions? Professor Berkman, would you like, if you'd like to speak, sure, feel free.
Yeah, I appreciate that, President Mason. Thank you. I'll just add, so hi, everybody. I'm Elliot Berkman, and I'm the Divisional Associate Dean for the Natural Sciences in the College of Arts and Sciences that oversees data science and computer science. And I just want to kind of support and back up what you've heard today, which is, of course, we're extremely sensitive to additional resource commitments, right, in light of everything that we've learned about the budget. And these programs are carefully designed, in fact, not to drain resources, but to bring in new resources, right? And the way we're building it is really bootstrapping, right? Sort of using existing faculty, folks who are already here who can teach these courses. In fact, any new courses benefit our current undergraduate and graduate students as the program grows, that bring in more revenue. At the point that we need to open additional sections, right, and we require additional resources, we use the revenue to support that, right? So in that way, it's totally, cost neutral at worst.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you for that, Professor Rajai and Professor Berkman. Next, I'd like to move on to hearing from our Bachelor of Education in Child Behavioral Health. As you know, child behavioral health has also has a BA and a BS degree that has been approved by the Senate. I will turn it over to Professor Maureen Zalewski to let us know about this new degree pathway. So Maureen, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you. It's good to be here, and thanks for having us. Just a real quick check. Are you looking at just the PowerPoint, or do you see everything?
I see everything.
Okay, let's go to let me do this. Is that better?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you. All right, and then continue to share so you don't see that. Just by way of introduction, I know I spoke with the Senate Executive Committee last week, but I don't know everyone here. My name is Maureen Zalewski. I'm a professor in psychology. I've been here since 2013 and have proudly been part of the Ballmer Institute since its launch. And so I will give a little bit of a background, just a reminder about the Ballmer Institute and the child behavioral health major and where we're at in that progression. So an overview of the child behavioral health major, this is designed as a 2+2 program. So the first 2 years of the degree can be completed in Eugene, at a community college, or even another institution. The final 2 years are on our U of O Portland campus. And the major, all of that happens on the U of O Portland campus and is 90 credits. And just so everyone is aware, 90 credits is the max that you can have for a major. And so we use every credit available to us. As part of their coursework, this includes the students getting over 700 hours of direct applied experience in youth serving settings. So this is a really unique feature and an important feature of our entire program, so that students are ready upon graduation to enter the workforce, already having applied and highly supervised skills. So those settings are places like K through 12 schools, healthcare, and community organizations. Here are our faculty. Most of our faculty, I'm the only faculty member that's actually based in Eugene. Everyone else is in Portland. We have tenure track faculty as well as career faculty. The tenure track faculty, as part of the original model, have tenure homes, either in the College of Ed or the psychology department. So for those of you in psych or COE, some of these folks are your close colleagues. A couple things about our program milestones. right? So in 2022, the BA and the BS degree for the child behavioral health major or degree were approved. In fall 2024, so just last fall, the first cohort began its year 3, so those latter 2 years in Portland. This year, we are delivering our curriculum for the first time to both 3rd and 4th years. And our students in Eugene, so the pre-CBH majors plus the CBH majors, we have over 100 students in those sort of combined pre-CBH and CBH. Excitedly, in spring 2026, which will be a huge milestone for us, we will expect our first graduation. Okay, so why pursue a BED pathway? This will offer a greater flexibility for our Eugene-based students. So this will expand academic pathways available to them and give options for all of our students. Part of this is in part, keep in mind that we use all 90 credits, right? So most majors, when you're doing your major, you may be able to continue to take electives that you're interested in or that build towards a minor. That's still possible for our students, of course, to do these things, but it's just more difficult because they have less flexibility within our major by design, right? We are training our students to be professionals. We need every credit to be able to get them to be ready to do what they're doing. We believe for some students, this will be a good fit. Keep in mind that one of our settings is K through 12 schools. So the BED is also a logical degree option that some of our students may seek to pursue. This helps align us with having timely graduation for our students, and our core ed requirements of a BED are consistent with some existing U of O degrees that are already in place. In addition, what else does a BED do? It's going to make it more accessible for our community college transfer students. So this increases access for community college students. And this is really important to us for a lot of different reasons. One of which is that it helps us attract highly qualified students. And I put up here some potential AAS programs that students who might have completed these would potentially be especially good fits for a BED pathway. This will help increase alignment with Oregon's core transfer model, and we want to increase access to this unique training for community college students who really want that degree in behavioral health careers. One thing to really just emphasize here about this particular proposal that I'm presenting on and that is in front of you, the program exists. So all students, whether you're doing a BA, a BS, a BED, at the Portland campus with the major, they will all receive the same 90 credits. The CBH program, which myself, my colleague Sarah Kate Bierman, who is on this call, have done a lot of work. This is a very rigorous program, requires a lot of critical thinking as well as technical skills. So these are skills in professional practice. Again, you are providing behavioral health, mental health services to children, youth, and families. You're implementing evidence-based mental health practices, learning about culturally responsive and inclusive practices. Approximately a third of the credits are supervised by our clinical faculty and our TTF, right? That means that when you are doing the services with children, you are actively being supervised and receiving live feedback to improve your skills. Our program also requires competency-based evaluations. So students are, they're writing, they're doing quizzes, they're doing, we use common practices for evaluating students. In addition, our students have to demonstrate that they can do these skills ahead of using these skills in the field with youth and families. They also have to demonstrate technical skills, so things like scoring screeners, doing these things accurately and with precision. Some of the financial considerations, the BED specifically will have no new net costs as the major requirements remain the same as the BA and the BS. So the current budget covers training costs for 100 students per year in years 3 and 4. And as I stated earlier, approximately between the pre-CBH and current CBH, we have about 100 students. So we have significant capacity to grow our enrollment within our existing budget. And the Balmer gift funds the salaries for faculty teaching these courses. And we believe that the addition of the BED may create that more viable pathway for students from community colleges and help us achieve these enrollment goals. That is all I have prepared, and I'm myself and Sarah Kate, who I believe is here, happy to field any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Professor, I'm going to mispronounce your name, Zalewski?
Oh, great. Yeah.
Okay. I'll say that I'm particularly excited about the opportunities to provide access to this program for students who are seeking their core education in our community colleges, and entering those sort of transfer portals and transfer pathways that we've set up. So I'm particularly excited about that. Senator Pack.
Yes, just a quick question about the community colleges. Is it any community colleges? Are there agreements with any community colleges for this?
Currently, yes, we're working closely with several community colleges, especially in the Portland area. And we work closely with them in terms of identifying prerequisites that match, so that we reduce barriers for students to be able to kind of more seamlessly enter. And we're looking to continue to build those, but we have several in place.
Is it going to be just limited to the Portland area, or could it include?
No, I think we're working with Lane Community College as well, other places as well, Multnomah, PCC. No, it's not at all just limited to Portland, but you could imagine being located there. That's going to be especially desirable for some of those students.
So I'm sorry, are you working with these community colleges to establish an agreement, or is it just if a student goes to the community college, they can just automatically fit into the program, or how does it work?
I mean, any student from a community college right now, if they met our requirements, would be eligible to transfer in, but we are working closely with them. So that it is easier for their students, or that the students know about it earlier in their time there. Yes, and those exist, and we're looking to build.
Okay, great, thanks.
Provost Long, I know you're sort of the expert in transfer pathways, so
just doubling down on what was said. I was over at Lane Community College a week or two ago to work on Duck Lane, which really is a dual enrollment program with Lane Community College. We're looking to expand that. That will also help the Balmer transition as well. And we're working very intentionally across the entire state around transfer generally. As the co-chair of the Oregon Transfer Council, I can definitely assure you that we are working on that project. But specifically with respect to Balmer, it's going to be an important pathway for us to expand this opportunity for students from across the state. So thanks for that. And thanks for your work on it. I think the BED is going to be an important part of ensuring that pathway is smooth for them.
anything else? All right. Well, thank you, Professor Zalewski. We will be voting on this at our next meeting on December 3rd. If there are any questions that come up between now and then, we'll provide you an opportunity to respond to those.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you. And now we're on to reports and other additional business. So first, I'd like to invite Derek Kindle, Vice President for Student Services and Enrollment Management. He's going to provide a quick overview of U of O's enrollment, and being new to the U of O campus, to be able to talk a little bit about his vision here. I met with him a few weeks ago. Sandy, the rules was at the end of the agenda that I saw. So, no. Can we hold on, Derek, can you hold on for a minute and we'll get to the next order of new business? That's my fault.
It's okay.
I'd like to introduce Sandy and Senator Choquette. Choquette's been chairing our Rules Committee. As I had talked about at the beginning of the term, over the summer, when there was a lot of interest in meeting and discussing some of the issues facing the university, there wasn't really any mechanism to call our Senate together. And in addition to that, it was not clear who was actually a senator. Was it last year's senators or the coming year senators? So we stood up the Rules Committee this year to address some of these questions. And I think they have a very short overview about some of those changes. So I'll turn that over to them.
And Bob, I was going to put up the text, if that's okay.
Sure, go for it, Sandy.
Cool. Bob, do you want to start?
Yeah, so Diana did a great job of teeing things up. These proposed rule changes are in response to the two issues about who's a senator in the summer and then who gets to call a meeting. So we met several times. I'm the chair of the committee, but Senator Andy Windand and Senator Becky Crabtree were also on the committee with me. And what Sandy just put up are our proposed changes. So generally speaking, most senators would have a term of service that begins and ends in mid-September. The exceptions would be student senators, and Sandy reached out to the ASUO and had a discussion with them about when their term of service would best begin and end. And based on the fact that some senators are seniors, it would be, well, they wouldn't really be affiliated with the university over the summer after they graduated. So the time of service for them should end about graduation around June 20th. And then for the Senate president and vice president, their term of service should begin and end at the end of the academic year, May, June, as it currently is. So that's the first set of changes. And then the second set of changes around who gets to call a meeting or a special meeting. And we determined that both the president and the vice president would have that ability. The vice president would be in case of the unavailability. Is that a word? Probably not a word. If the president wasn't available to call a meeting, then the vice president could do that. Sandy, is there anything I maybe left out that you want to add?
No, I think you did a good job. These are just two essential issues that, as everyone said, came up over the summer. And just to explain what we technically are going to do, once these are being proposed as a motion to change specific sections of the bylaws, those are noted in the motion and noted in this document. And when we pass the motion, it will be as a bylaw change, which actually does take a 2/3 vote. That's the one difference. But these are the sections that we're looking to change for those two purposes. And either Bob or I are happy to answer any questions.
Yep.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Sandy. Any questions on this? All right. Hal. Professor Sadowski.
I'm sorry, I know I'm not a senator, but I
No,
just
it's okay.
wanted to suggest that you separate the begin and end, like end on September 15th, begin on September 16th, just in case that ever becomes confusing. That's all.
Thank you.
I thought of it. I think that is probably a better practice. So I think that's so we would do the same thing.
Or ends on September 14th, because all of the faculty
Based
are
off the
on starting September
contracts.
15th. All of the tenure line faculty are on September 15th. Yeah.
And Hal, just clarity on that,
Right.
that's because of the start date of the contracts.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't the
Yeah.
contract start date, isn't the contract start date on the 16th?
I thought it was the 15th, but that's a good. Okay, so Spike also said the 16th. Maybe it's
Okay.
the 16th. So we'll clarify that and fix it.
Yeah, before that's up for the vote at the third meeting, we'll make sure we double check the start date of the contract, and you make a good point about staggering those two dates. So we appreciate it, Hal.
I've been getting to work a day early. That shame on me. for a decade. All right. Okay, so thank you. If you do have any other questions or comments, please send a note to Senator Choquette or Sandy to get back to you. Now I'd like to invite Derek Kindle, our Vice President for Student Services and Enrollment Management. Derek, you now have the floor.
Thank you so much, President Mason. Thank you, Sandy, for the invite and welcome to the update from Student Services and Enrollment Management. So like, Diana said, I'm still new here, so I'm going to go over some initial observations from where I see things. This will not be a long, drawn-out plan about where exactly are we going to recruit and how many students do we expect to have in next year's fall class. This is just an overview. And apologies in advance for those of you who tuned into the September Board of Trustees meeting. Much of this is sort of a repeat from that meeting, but I think it's important to have those things here. So I'll quickly try to share my screen and move through this. I know that I am next to last on the agenda, so I will hopefully get through this pretty quickly without missing some key areas. Hold on one second. Let me get. And you'll all have to let me know when you can see the screen. Thumbs up. Cool. All right. So again, just going through some initial observations, any enrollment leader looks at what we call the funnel, the enrollment funnel. And so our enrollment funnel looks like what is before you in green. And then you can see the median. We had to look at the Big Ten and the legacy Pac-12, and you'll see the median things there. The takeaway from this funnel is that we essentially have about 37% fewer applicants than our peers. And we're admitting more of our applicants than our peers, about 11 percentage points more, and between 11%, sorry, and 33% more, and still yield 10% fewer students. So that just shows you sort of the enrollment funnel crunch that the U of O is in and what we're facing in student services and enrollment management. And you can see what we've resulted in how we've recruited and how and the students that we've received over time. I am happy that we are still improving in these areas that are listed under the Oregon Rising Goals, which is first year to second year retention, as well as graduation rates. But we are still behind our peers, as many of you know. 8% lower in our retention rate, that's first year to second year, and then 15% lower four-year graduation rate. I know in the Oregon Rising Goals, we'll talk a little bit about, or we do talk about six-year graduation rates. For my purposes, you'll most likely just hear me talk about four-year, only because as an enrollment person, every student who approaches you believes that they will graduate in 4 years, and that's exactly what they want to hear. And so I'll continue to stick to the four-year graduation rate. There are some things that we're really excited about within the division. And even though we are facing headwinds and challenges before us, we do have a strong and eager team. We do have a strategic plan that, particularly for those of us in enrollment, is clear, it's value-centered, it's doable. The brand, the UO brand is very recognizable. We're not an upstart of a type of a brand. We're not a smaller institution that has to do a lot for people to recognize who they are. And we have lots of untapped resources. Here I've listed alumni and supporters, but supporters include people like yourself. And they include other people on campus in the Eugene community, in the community in Oregon, and quite honestly, around the world. All the people with whom you've interacted with, who have a positive impression of UO, are great supporters in the enrollment space. So these are the things that we're watching. California in particular is a key market for the University of Oregon. It has been particularly for our domestic non-resident students. We've depended largely on them and the West Coast in general. And that means that any changes that happen, if there's a cough in California, we catch the flu, I would actually say pneumonia at this point. There are some things that we're watching in California, particularly with the UCs, but also within our Big Ten peers that are a particular challenge to us. So the two things that we're watching, one, the UC system is increasing the number of students on most of their campuses. Most of their residents, I should say, on most of their campuses are increasing and have, which means the UCs will be admitting more California residents than they have in prior years. In addition, all of our Big Ten peers and particularly the most competitive of them, are really honing in on California in the same market space and conditions that we are. I'll use an example from my previous employer. Oregon has about 6 regional recruiters in California. Wisconsin just started with 2 years ago, and their number of applicants from California far exceed that of Oregon, who's been in the marketplace for much longer. That's just one example. And so those are things that we're really looking into. I was on a call with with my Big Ten peers on Monday, and one question, a sort of straw poll, was asked of the group, and that is, how many of you will be looking for more domestic non-residents next year, even above perhaps what your state statute or what your historical trends have been with your makeup of residents and non-residents? Every single member of the call raised their hands. And we only had 2 people who were not on the call of the 19 Big Tens. And so that is something that we're really focused on, particularly in California. What this will mean is that we will not only continue to focus in California and double down in some areas, but we'll be expanding our footprint in other areas that are of interest to us, and that'll be outside of the West Coast. The other part of this is the attention economy is even smaller. What students are paying attention to, how long they're paying attention to it, means that we have very limited space. Many of you probably went to college around the time where you applied to between 1 and 5 institutions. Students who are applying to Oregon, students who are applying to Big Ten peers, are sometimes applying to 20 institutions, which is a whole lot. So you can imagine that we are trying to carve out a moment where we can talk to students, and we're talking to them with very limited time. There are some updates from the federal side that we're following. Many of you know the issues that are facing higher ed. Lots of you are going to be engaged more so on the research side, though the issues in higher ed are expansive. The issues that are in higher ed are expansive, but they're also overnight changes in many cases. These are things that we are not able to lobby on as well. We had the opportunities to do so in the future, things that happen through executive actions or executive orders, changes in how and where agencies report within the Department of Education are changing overnight. Student visa issues or our relationship with other countries are changing overnight, and that's changing the perception for many students, even if or when visa issues are not immediately impacted. And so those are some of the things that we're concerned about. At a very practical level, student aid itself is a major concern for us. Many of you may have heard last year, in the last several years, big efforts to double the Pell Grant and to expand other parts of federal student aid, particularly on the grant side. That is not in the cards under the current Congress and administration. And in fact, what has happened through OB3, or One Big Beautiful Bill, or HR1, however you want to label it, are 2 very significant changes impacting our students and students across the country at the undergraduate and graduate level. The first is that the Parent Plus loan, so that's for undergraduate dependent students, is going to be going away effective next year, or excuse me, not going away, limited effective next year. So currently there is no limit to the amount that families can borrow under the Dependent Plus Loan program for parents. It will be limited in the future to $20,000 per year with a max of $65,000. For those of you who are really quick with math, you realize that $20,000 a year in 4 years should be $80,000. Your math is not off. You are correct. And the max amount is still $65,000. Our students are borrowing, typically our domestic non-residents are borrowing well over $20,000 per year and well over $65,000 in their lifetime at UO. Many of our students and families are using this as a first option among other options, and a good set of our students are using this as the only option. And they're using it as the only option because the credit check for the plus loans at the undergraduate and graduate level are only looking for adverse credit history. So unlike other consumer loans, they are not looking at a FICO score or other debt to income ratios. They're only looking for adverse credit history. At the grad level, with the exception of law school, the grad plus loans are what will be eliminated moving forward after 2026. Now, the people who are in these programs now are grandfathered for the termination of their degree. But for grad plus loans, again, with the exception of law, they're going to be eliminated in the near future. What we're hearing is that, people are on the edge of their seats hoping that this will either be delayed or that there will be significant changes to this. That is a hope. That is not necessarily anything that we have an indication from Congress. Many of you know we are just, the government just reopened. This is certainly not at the top of their list, despite how we might feel about it and what our students feel about it. But it's something that we're tracking closely. Our AVP and Director of Financial Aid is meeting with graduate schools or programs, as well as the professional schools. Just met with the university leadership team yesterday. And so we'll be providing more information for impacted departments over time, but those are some of the key things that we're looking for on the federal side. What we are also looking for as a division is a deep dive into our enrollment funnel. The funnel that I showed you before, we're looking at the strength of our applicant pool, where we might be able to focus or hone in really on the students we want first and most, and then align everything else that we do with that. That could be marketing, that could be things like financial aid. And so that's some of the things that we're working on, as well as engagement with high schools, high school counselors, alumni groups, community-based organizations, and others are what we're going to focus on in the future to build up long-lasting relationships instead of just focusing on things that might be more short-term, like, let's say, an ad. So we're really looking forward to engaging with students and families coming up in the very near future. This will be a very difficult year in the enrollment landscape. We'll be keeping of course, the university leadership updated with this. I am open, of course, to continue to have ongoing conversations with the Senate as things progress. We're still very early into the cycle for the class that will be entering in fall of 26. Our early action deadline was November the 1st. So we are just 19 days into those applications being completed and submitted. And we, of course, have regular decision that's still coming up. So you'll learn more from us in the coming weeks and months, and we're, of course, open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Any questions for Derek? I wanted just to clarify one thing, Derek. The Grad Plus loans that are expected to expire, that's like supplemental funding that grad students often tap into. They will still be eligible for sort of the standard loans that they might be able to get. Is that correct?
So the graduate direct unsubsidized loan, they will still be eligible for. But remember, that is still a very limited loan dollar amount. This is what students usually exercise, not only to round out tuition, but to pay for the rest of living expenses. For the students who are in PhD programs that provide additional funding, you are correct, it's supplemental. For students who are in professional master's programs, et cetera, many of those are banking on this a whole lot more than, let's say, PhD students. There's a particular vulnerability for students with families who are usually looking for this to help round out full living expenses, childcare, and other things. That can happen at the master's level, but it's particularly impactful at the graduate level.
Thank you. Thanks for the update. I'm guessing we're probably going to hear from you again soon. So thank you. And just as I put in the chat, Betsy Boyd, who does federal affairs for us, will be coming and speaking at our next Senate meeting on December 3rd. So we'll be able to hear a little bit more about what's going on in Congress, what we can do maybe to help, and what the sort of projections are, I guess, as best as we can do these days. So yeah.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Now, I'd like to welcome Professor Sadowski to share with us information, an overview about Elements, this new software that we've heard about. Sandy will put a document that is sort of a cheat sheet on how to on some information about Elements for you. So I will turn it over to Hal. You have the floor.
Thanks, Diana. And I'm looking forward to talking about this at the most energetic part of the day for everybody, an hour and 40 minutes into a meeting late on a winter afternoon. I just want to, let's see, put up my presentation. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about, is this legible? Great. I want to spend a few minutes talking about what elements is for, and then I want to spend a few minutes talking about where faculty interactions are specifically. So the reason we adopted elements was to replace our management of faculty reviews, which has hitherto been by email and shared PDFs, with a system that's more streamlined, more secure, easier to manage, and that can provide us a usable database of faculty achievements. This overlaps what Chris Long was talking about a little bit earlier, and usable service inventories. And I'll say a little bit more about this in a minute. That we're not changing what we're doing. We have the same review criteria that our individual departments and schools and colleges have. We have the same review policies and procedures. It's just a different system of managing the processes. I do want to talk about history a little bit, and I'll be pretty quick because we are short on time. The Provost's efforts on this actually date back to 2019, and they overlap with a Senate white paper on service. And the draft that I have is a draft, and it's dated 2021. So I think there was common interest in doing a better job on cataloging service so that we can better understand service equity, as well as an interest in issues around how do we understand what scholarship is going on campus, and can we use a software system to think about this in a more holistic way than just thinking about faculty member by faculty member. The efforts in 2019 included a fairly large steering committee, which included the Senate chair and co-chair at that time, deans, faculty, staff, extensive interviews across campus about needs, a technical review committee to set up a request for proposals. And that work was finished just in time for a global pandemic. And at that point, budgetary concerns and actually a fairly small vendor pool led the university to set it aside. This was restarted in 2023, so 3 years later, at which time there was a more competitive vendor pool. And something that went along with that is somewhat reduced funding needs. We chose a vendor early in 2024 and signed a contract in April 24 and started on implementation. The implementation has had a couple groups of people from across campus. There's an academic advisory group, and there were people on the call, I don't know if they're still there, who are part of the academic advisory group. It's primarily relevant associate deans and sometimes deans and staff people in personnel support roles. There's a technical advisory group, which includes people in personnel support roles, some HR staff, some library staff, provost office staff, and research office staff. And then there's a core team in the provost's office. And as I said, we started implementation in April 2024. So this has been going on for a while, but we didn't try to start talking much across campus about it until this year when we're actually implementing it for reviews. I want to spend a couple minutes on what I feel like the biggest concerns that I'm hearing about and where we are in those. One of those concerns is around data privacy. And I just want to be clear about what's in this system. So it has the sort of data we would expect in a faculty review file. It has data about scholarly work and creative activity, And we feed that data in internally, but there are also external feeds for some of that data. If, for example, your scholarship is primarily publishing in peer-reviewed journals, there's a reasonably good external feed that can provide a lot of that data. We have grant activity, which is fed from the OVPRI's grant system and also externally. Teaching activity data that's fed from Banner. Service data, and you notice I don't have any feed there because we don't have a feed for service data. One of the things that this system will create is actually a catalog of service data. We are building a system that allows us to easily catalog sort of standing committees, such as Senate committees, college committees, other university committees, department committees. And of course, people will be able to enter external service and other service they're doing, although that will be more ad hoc. But also because this is a review system, it has external review letters where those are needed for reviews, and then committee head and dean evaluations. So I think it's reasonable to be concerned about data privacy in this situation, and people are. I want to stress that it's not public information, it's our information on a system that we contract with the vendor on. So you can think about it as being analogous to our email, which we contract with Microsoft for, or OneDrive or SharePoint, which are also part of our Microsoft contract, or Dropbox, which we contract with Dropbox for. So it's not public information. The terms of our contract do not allow Digital Science, that's the vendor, to use the data except in serving our review needs as specified in the contract, and it does not allow them to share it with others. So I know this is one locus of concern that people have, and then the other locus of concern, which of course I share, is usability. It's a new system. There's a learning curve for faculty, staff, and for that matter, for our team. The units that are furthest along the learning curve on the staff side are reporting big improvements in efficiency over previous practice. I consider this a big win, right? If staff are less busy dealing with personnel files, then there are more things they can do in other ways to help move the mission of their unit forward. I would say I've talked to. We have lots of, I don't know how many people on this call have been in Elements already. The main reason people are in the system right now is because faculty are engaged in reviews. And in terms of usability, I would say it's mixed at this point, but we're making a lot of progress in fixing and improving things as we learn what the pain points are for faculty doing this, and we're making revisions as we go. I hope that this year will be good, and I hope that next year will be better. I want to talk a little bit about where we are in rollout. So again, we're using it this year for faculty review, but we're using sort of usual data source. That is, we're using the faculty CV and the other typical documents we would have in a review file. We're just running it through this system instead of doing, for example, tabbed PDFs as we would have been doing otherwise. January, we'll start giving guidance to faculty on curating their profiles. We haven't done that yet because this is actually, for most faculty, this is an easy job, but it's only easy if you know the right things to do. If you just go in there without guidance, you could end up spending a lot of time entering by hand things that Elements will collect for you automatically. So we don't want people wasting energy doing that. And then next year, we expect for faculty reviews to be able to use the scholarship, teaching, and service data that we'll be working on making accurate this spring and summer, this winter, spring, and summer. And then let me just end here with training and support. The Provost website has got a page that has a thumbnail sketch of what I just went over. It's got links to how-to PDFs and videos that are aimed at the faculty. It also has links to the ticketing process and to online support hours for staff and for faculty. And then if you have questions, feel free to email me or Katie Krieger or contact either or both of us in other ways. All right, I'm happy to have questions now. And I think I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Hal. So if folks have questions, please raise your hand. I had a chance to meet with Hal and Pedro a couple weeks ago to go over how the profiles will work. One of my concerns has been administrative burden, just the extra time to manage yet another page, an app that we have to do. This seems to be relatively low burden. I don't know if you have some, what you've been hearing from the folks who've been asked to use it so far, Hal.
I think the main thing, the thing that we've been hearing from the staff in smaller colleges that aren't as layered as CAS or design is pretty positive on the staff side. On the faculty side, again, we haven't yet asked faculty to curate their own profiles, and we will at some point. And that is a place where I want to be extremely careful to minimize administrative burden. The main thing we've been hearing about on the extra effort required from reviewers who are going through files is we made some implementation decisions based on trying to keep personnel data secure about what could be downloaded and what could not be downloaded. And we're getting a lot of pushback on those decisions, but I think that's reasonable pushback and we can reconsider those decisions.
Thank you. Senator Seaman.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add faculty input as someone who has been engaged in reviewing at the college level. I would say mixed is generous. It's been kind of negative. There are still a lot of bugs in the system, and it's just easier looking at CVs and the dossier right now. It's actually more confusing because everything isn't like things should just be invisible in my view until it's totally rolled out. That caused a lot of confusion, but I do worry that since our disciplines across campus are so different, when we put our own material, this is not as a reviewer, this is just as a faculty member speaking now, when we put our own information on our CVs, we tailor it to our fields, which the external reviewers who are looking at our files know and are familiar with. If it's done too generically, it's going to hinder the external review process as well, I think. So I hope that all of our differences across campus are taken into account when these things have to be recorded for no other reason, just for the external reviewers who are in our own disciplines, and even at the department level would be in our own disciplines as well. So thank you. I do appreciate all the work. I know this was a massive effort, and I can see how there are some benefits to having a central repository that's better than having all the tabs or just having PDFs or those kinds of things. But I'm still very skeptical about the importing everything from our ORCID numbers because a lot of our disciplines just don't that's just not how a lot of our disciplines, research and scholarship, creative activity is captured. So thanks very much.
No, thanks, Chris. Those are both really good comments. And I just want to reassure you that nobody is under the illusion that everything can be imported from ORCID numbers. That will work in some areas for many people, but it absolutely doesn't work generically. And we've spent a number of hours with, for example, with department heads and associate deans in design, which is one of the most sort of heterogeneous colleges on campus, going over what some of the challenges are, particularly, Chris, as you said, the challenges around the fact that we need categories that work not only for each discipline, but sometimes for each faculty member within a discipline, because you can have one faculty member who works in architecture, just to name an example, where the work is of a certain, mostly of a certain type, and another faculty member where the work is of a rather different type, and the categories actually need to be flexible enough for that. So we're working on how to do that. I will probably try to follow up with you about your experiences as a reviewer, just to make sure we're incorporating as much feedback as possible as we think through how to make it work better for people. So thank you.
Senator Gildea.
Yeah, I'm glad this is happening in a sense, in part because some of you might remember, 8 or 10 years ago, we had this academic analytics thing that was giving all kinds of disinformation about our academic productivity. And in part, it was because it imposed a particular template on top of various disciplines that didn't work very well. But as a part of collecting the data to show that it didn't work very well, I discovered that even in my own department, I was unable to categorize the organization of CVs of my own colleagues in an area where I actually thought I understood what they did. I actually had to contact my colleagues and say, is this a that? Is this a that? Can we find some way? People were being idiosyncratic in ways that went well beyond what was necessary to distinguish a discipline. It was, I'm doing it the way I was taught, and I don't want to change. And I advocated then, and something that was unpopular, but that I think this is finally Elements doing, that we do have some way to standardize. And I'll just say the backside of that is there's no way in hell that anyone's going to get it right importing data from anywhere else. The individuals in question are going to have to go in and make decisions at some point. And you're going to field complaints from people that say the decisions I'm looking for, categories I'm looking for aren't here. And I think there's going to have to be some trade-off between the flexibility to actually capture differences and the sort of discipline, the rigor to say, I think you're making a difference here that's not really a difference. Certainly inside my department, I had to do that. And I didn't feel like I could even sort my 8 colleagues' CVs into a set of unified categories of any kind based on what was in their CV. Whereas once it was explained, it wasn't that hard to do. So I think there's a lot of work ahead, and we shouldn't underestimate it. And it's going to require engagement, not just one time to consult, but individuals are going to have to go in and say, this is all wrong. And then department heads are going to have to get involved to, let's say, it's going to be messy. And in the end, I think it's going to be a really good thing that we do it. Whether or not we continue to use these idiosyncratic CVs because it feels good and it expresses our identity is a separate question. But certainly, it's not going to be easy. I just want to raise a flag there and say, look for ways to be kind to people who are probably not going to be kind to you.
Yeah, I think thanks for that, Spike. I think one thing that, just 2 quick comments. One comment is that we're taking as a guiding principle that we need to set this up in a way that's easy for reviewers to use. That's one comment. The other comment is, in order to trial things, we have students working off of CVs, trying to enter things, and then we circle back with the departments to say, did this happen in a way that makes sense? And they say no. So then we go back and fix the things that they told us and do it again. So we're trying to acquire expertise that way. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Spike. So Alejandro, if your comment or question is quick, you're the last question today.
Yes, thank you. My comment is very quick. I'm concerned about the amount of time that is going to take us to do this, because we have basically 2 months to do it, from mid-January to mid-March. And I'm concerned about the fact that all of these little things add up to a lot when you are being reviewed, and actually you're reviewing in two different people. So I'm really worried about the deadlines, and I'm worried about this making a huge amount of labor, extra labor for the faculty. And it's just a comment. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that I'm worried about deadlines and the way in which we should think about that this is going to take more time than what it did before, because we have a learning curve. It's just a comment.
Thank you, Senator Vega. All right, so I think that's it for today. As Hal just put in the chat, if you do have more questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'm hoping, I know that Pedro and I talked about working with the departments and units and colleges to try to help support that service inventory, particularly with an eye on service equity. So we hope to, some of you may hear from us on that in the coming months as well. So I think that's it for today. It's now time for notice of motions. Are there any motions for which you would like to provide consideration at our upcoming meetings? Okay. With that said, before we adjourn, I'd like to remind senators that our next meeting is going to be in person on December 3rd from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Redwood Room in the EMU. If you are unable to attend, I mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, you may appoint a substitute to represent you and your department or unit at the Senate meeting, so and can vote in your absence. So with that, it's time to close, and I adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn at 4:59?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.
And without objection, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.